good morning, good afternoon, or depending on where in the world you are, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's webinar is entitled Top Fraud Trends and Predictions in 2022. My name is Amber Colson, Marketing Director here at Count, and I'm joined today by Rich Steppe, Count's Chief Customer Experience Officer, Brady Harrison, our Senior Data Analyst, and also my colleague, Alyssa Grant, who's helping us with behind the scenes monitoring your questions in the chat. I will tell you that especially Brady and Rich are two of the smartest folks I know when it comes to digital commerce and fraud, so you are absolutely in for a treat today. Now, before we chat with our presenters, let's start with a quick poll. Some of the fraud trends that folks may have heard about lately include friendly fraud, botnet attacks, buy now, pay later related fraud, or refund chargeback fraud. That looks like 68% of folks have heard about, voted for friendly fraud, about 50% of people voted for botnet attacks, 12% have heard about buy now, pay later, and another 68% about refund and chargeback fraud. So, Rich and Brady, I think the audience has teed things up nicely for you. They've shared the fraud trends they've heard a lot about. What about you? From your perspective, is there a big picture fraud trend you're seeing that people listening might not immediately recognize? What's something that you'd like to talk to them a little bit more about? Rich, let's start with you.
So I think the big thing that I think people might not be thinking about is the idea that COVID relief fraud has changed the nature of fraud, I think, forever. And there's a story behind that, and I think it's important to every single person on this webinar. So we all remember when the pandemic started in 2020, governments all over the planet rushed fiscal stimulus out to compensate for the damage to economies that once in every 100 years pandemic would do. And these programs, whether it was extended unemployment insurance or business loans or a variety of other approaches, were rolled out with great haste and without a lot of controls associated with them because they had to be done so fast. And as a person that lives and breathes fraud every day, as I read about it and I watched my son actually apply for one of these programs because his restaurant was closed, shuttered during COVID, I said to myself, oh my, this is going to be minimum of a 10% fraud rate. And we started talking about that last year, but, and it was pre-research, pre-analysis, etc. And if it was a 10% fraud rate, you could extrapolate and say tens of billions of dollars would be taken in fraud and flow into organized crime fraud businesses as a result of that. Now, fast forward to now, and in December, a single article in the Wall Street Journal described two separate investigations that were compiled by attorneys generals and inspector generals and probably other sorts of generals. But one of the investigations showed $100 billion through one program and another $87 billion in the US alone. So, and much of that data or much of that money flowed into criminal organizations. So over the course of 2 years, more money and more capital has flowed into organized crime and organized fraudsters than has been invested in anti-fraud technologies and companies probably ever. And so what that means to us is we have to think about what they're doing with the money. And I think part of what you do with the money is, and you've probably read some stories, you start by throwing a hell of a party. But after that, you think like any organization or any business does, and you start to make strategic investments to improve the way your business works. And what we have seen fraudsters and organized crime organizations invest in is they've invested in automation, they've invested in data, they've invested in connecting the ecosystem better, and also in targeting many, many different types of businesses, or improving their targeting on many, many different types of businesses. This is beyond retail. This is beyond financial institutions. This is beyond banking. This is beyond insurance. This is about any digital business is a target for these organized fraudsters, and they have really leveled up their game on fighting this. And we'll talk about more what this means as we go forward, but I think it's critical that everybody understands. The old saying is the price of poker just went up. The stakes are much higher now, and it's because of all the investments the fraudsters have done. But that's not like the really bad news. The really bad news is these COVID programs are waning. Many of them are done or close to done. And the ones that aren't done have drastically improved their capabilities as far as preventing fraud and investigating fraud after the fact, and maybe pulling some of that money back. So the really bad news is that the softest target is gone, and all of these organizations are now looking for the next sets of easy money. And I'm afraid that in reviewing the attendee list, many of the folks attending here are in that easy money, or maybe not easy money. They're being targeted, let's say, and so they have to think about protecting themselves with an ardor that they wouldn't had to have because of they're dealing with a much more advanced adversary. That's my take on this big particular item.
Brady, anything you wanted to add on this topic?
I think there's a strong point there. And Rich said these are businesses. I think that's pretty critical. There are lone actors who are kind of doing this in basements, but many of these are large scale organizations that have robust data analytics, R&D, customer service. They even have fraud teams themselves to kind of manage the ecosystem of the money they're making, right? They have paid dividends to themselves in 2020 and 2021, and then they reinvested some of their profits, like all good businesses do. So we need to think of them as non-lawful profit-seeking firms rather than just bad actors. So now they've taken potentially hundreds of billions of dollars and reinvested into their infrastructure. So they have the fanciest hammer on the planet, and now they're going to look for nails. So that's critical, thinking of them as businesses. Number two, we're also seeing a kind of scale up, that the level of sophistication is higher and higher and higher. More and more people are getting involved in these, and the thresholds for getting involved is lower, right? Historically, if you wanted to commit online fraud, you maybe needed to do kind of nose to tail, right? You need to compromise credentials, test those credentials, use those credentials, and then resale. We've started to see specialization as well, where one firm might just focus on taking over cards, and then they sell them off to another. We're starting to see that kind of blow up, and it's moving beyond credit cards. It's any part of the identity or customer journey. But again, we're looking at a bigger problem than ever, and we're seeing higher intensity and sophistication across all channels, from small SMBs that are just going online to large enterprises who have a really robust fraud strategy.
Great, thank you. So good insights there, gentlemen. What about e-commerce or digital business? What's the hype there? Rich, I'll advance the slide here, but what's the hype that you're starting to see?
Well, I think one of the places, as the slide aptly says, is the metaverse is a really hot topic lately. One portion of the businesses that we serve is retail, and I went to NRF, National Retail Federation's probably the largest trade show discussing retail. It's in New York in the middle of January, which was it's like that every year, but whatever, nice and cold. Metaverse was all over the NRF. And for me, the takeaways were several, but retailers are beginning to experiment. Their places they're starting is really in marketing and commerce and how to do that better. They're talking about the idea of a digital twin. And the digital twin is another concept that I think will be coming up and be, you'll hear more and more and more about it as it becomes pushed into the mainstream. And what digital twin is about is creating a business that's a complete digital version of your business. And it meets and matches customers in a virtual environment. And this is another big trend, linking physical to digital customer experiences. I've taken to the term phygital. I think if you're Dutch, you could call it figital, but it's the idea of combining those two experiences. And it really has some strange combinations, you know, and you could go to the next slide, but we're talking about augmented reality, non-fungible tokens or NFTs, other digital goods, combining social media, crypto and other digital payments, gaming, and really meeting your customers in a digital world. And the idea behind this is going to be the place where the follow-on generations, the younger generations of people that want their retail, their financial services, their banking, their engagement to happen. The idea is in this in the metaverse, which is really a collection of different environments that you'll be able to operate in. And when they talked about the partners and the companies and the places to look to for who's got the experience in the metaverse, it made me smile because Count works with customers in the gaming, virtual world, online entertainment. We've worked with customers for a decade or more, and some of these customers were doing they were doing the metaverse before Mark Zuckerberg quit school. They were doing the metaverse. Frankly, they started before Mark Zuckerberg was out of diapers. So there's a lot of really solid examples of how to do excellent business, engage customers, convey value in a digital environment that will be applicable to all of these companies that move to this sort of digital augmented reality. And I can attest, and Brady can attest, that the fraud concerns are significant in these virtual worlds because there's lots of very interesting bad action that can take place in these virtual worlds, and folks have to be aware of that.
Great, thank you, Rich. Brady, why don't I tee up this next slide here for you, because we've heard about a couple of big picture trends now. But if I'm listening to this call and I'm not Amber Coulson, I'm one of the attendees, you know, what do these big picture trends mean? So what? Why do I care?
Yeah, so the biggest one, the metaverse, like shift to digital, right? All of this activity is really about digital enablement. There was a great stat like early 2020 that, you know, e-commerce was growing at about 1% a year. So, you know, we can take that as a proxy for, you know, physical spend online. In the first 6 weeks after the pandemic, e-commerce grew 10%. So essentially, we had a decade's worth of growth in about 8 weeks. As we've probably seen, people are not going back, right? The cat is out of the bag, that digital is kind of the primary option for many people. And so as part of that, it's really about digital enablement. So what does that mean? It means we want to offer really differentiated, personalized experiences with low friction that are the confluence of your physical, identity in business and your digital identity in business. So that physical to digital interface, think about it like online order ahead for a QSR or buy online, pickup in store, right? Doing a loan application totally online, right? Many of us, took advantage of refinancing opportunities and they did their loans 100% digital, right? They were able to process and, inquire about a home loan or refinance totally digitally. And so part of that is enabling that process to happen is really where, ship's going. So what that means is we create new revenue opportunities or new ways to interact with our customers. What that does is create new opportunity for bad actors, right? Bad actors are generally hop on the technology faster than almost anyone, namely because, again, we need to think about them as profit-seeking, non-lawful firms. And wherever there is profit, like Rich said, if you have a digital interaction, there is risk there, right? If there is profit to be made in some part of your interaction with your business, people will attack it, whether it's, free coffee, free gift cards, right? PayPal recently announced that they had a user creation incentive, and there was a lot of risk associated with that. And people offering gift cards or any promo codes, if there's free value to be gained by bad actors, they will do so. So generally what that tends to mean is paired with, we have many, many new experiences or channels, whether that's the metaverse or more of a traditional e-commerce transaction, or even just a physical digital interface transaction like buy online, pick up in store, or order ahead. That creates a lot of risk, right? We have fraudsters are stronger than ever. We have a bunch of new channels, new ways that we want to interact with our customers. Then customers start to see risk. So that causes people to overcorrect. And so now we're failing on the original conceit here is we need to provide a high quality customer experience, right? We say, keep your brand promise there. But we not only want to stop bad actors, but we want to have our good customers have a frictionless, effortless experience. And so if you're having a robust, really in your face fraud challenge at every digital interaction, people are going to try to go elsewhere unless you have a super differentiated, one of a kind market offering, which given the face of innovation, if you have that, you probably won't have it for long, right? You need to build a moat. Part of that moat is a great customer experience while maintaining your risk portfolio. Part of that too is we need to go find new customers, right? We might be tapped out on your traditional physical retail, but we can market and go find and increase CLV, customer lifetime value with customers by really identifying who they are, say, hey, is this a good customer for me? Help engage them and personalize their experience, right? If you know about me, right? If you know that I just bought a home, maybe you want to offer me different kinds of services or different product offerings, or you know what I tend to buy, that can be helpful. And doing that in a way that's enriching without being overly creepy, right? Creepy, not the best term, but people like to be subtly marketed to. When you're overly specific, that can give people the heebie-jeebies, to use a technical term. And so it's a nice balance of let's mitigate risk, help grow our company, and then provide a frictionless experience so we not only can capture those customers, but grow those customers.
Perfect. Well, thanks for those insights, Brady. Let me advance one slide here.
Amber, I'm sorry. Could you scroll back just one?
Of course.
I think one of the if you look at the diagram on the left, that's how we've sort of broken down how we think about helping our customers engage with their customers in a right way, whether it's a consumer or a business, whether it's an online banking platform or an online retail platform, a financial services, a remittance, a game, an entertainment company. The first step at the top is to identify the customers as early as possible in the customer journey. Make the appropriate assessments is the next step. Are they a high-risk customer? Are they a customer that has propensities that would make them big spenders or bad spenders? Are they qualified for certain types of products. And once you make all of those assessments, then you can engage with them in a level that's appropriate. So meaning if you have, if you're a bank and you have prime credit customers, you probably want to speak with them in a particular way. If they are subprime or their propensity to spend is lower, you would probably want to channel them to other sorts of programs. And we believe very strongly is if you do that, you get to the next phase, which is grow, where you can optimize the customer lifetime value and lower the cost of customer acquisition and grow your business with your embedded base of customers by keeping your promises. Like this is the whole concept of Count and Equifax together, combining rich digital data, rich physical data, and empowering our customers to build the best possible relationship. And that's, as Brady said, digital enablement. That's all. Next slide, please.
Perfect. All right. Thanks for that clarification, Rich. That was helpful. All right. Bots are another topic that we've been hearing more and more about. From your perspective, Rich, I know you've got some good stories. What's one of the craziest stories you've heard about bots?
Yeah, I think let's go to the next slide and I'll speak a little bit about that. So the idea, what we're seeing more and more is that automation is attacking all points of the customer journey. And so it used to be for a retailer, for example, the payment was at the center of that customer journey. But now maybe it's loyalty, maybe it's creating an account, maybe it's a one-time click and buy. What we are seeing is customized bots are attacking really any point in the customer journey. One of the ones that has really come out a lot is for high dollar specialty goods that are limited in distribution, is the idea that fraudsters will take a bot targeted against their site, load up this very rare product, and then while it's sitting there in their carts, that gives them the time to buy the ones that they need well in advance of the other people that are trying to buy their products. And so that's a problem that can be difficult to solve, but if you have the right level of policy enforcement and sensors in your customer journey, you can prevent people from manipulating your inventory. That's one good one. And Brady, you might have another one.
Yeah, so we see a bot like that might be not necessarily fraudulent all the time. Sometimes is fraudulent for inventory denial. At a really base level, right? Like we saw, anything that has value, right? We're seeing people like test coupons and gift cards, right? Spend hundreds of dollars to get a light switch, right? Many people probably have Wi-Fi enabled or Internet of Things enabled devices in their home. Sometimes they're of dubious security quality. It's not hyper difficult to compromise one of these devices. And we've seen stories of fridges buying, not fridges, right? Not kind of fridge cannibalism, but a fridge making a purchase on another website. So like a fridge buying a pair of shoes, in our example close to Rich, or someone's light switch logging into someone's Netflix account or on another account. And so that's one of the wilder things that we've seen is these IoT devices that people have in their home, maybe might not have the best security, are being used to attempt to either compromise or manipulate things online. And so essentially we're seeing light switches buy groceries and TVs, log into accounts, right? Nothing that they should really ever be doing, but it has a live internet connection and a processor. And so it can go out to the internet and do anything a user would do, with some limitations.
Yeah, and light switches and refrigerators and the ever-present video cameras, being used for card testing and enumeration, or even credential testing or credential stuffing. It can really come from anywhere, and folks have to be really careful about understanding when they give devices in their home or auto or on their body agency to act as themselves. They open themselves up to risk of all sorts.
The big part of this, I think the scary thing that we're kind of seeing is this topic that's been floating around the internet for a while. It's called the Internet Inversion, right? We see a lot of scaled up capability with bad actors. And we're seeing a larger and larger share of traffic on the internet is associated not just with automated activities like web crawlers or, you know, your favorite weather bot who tweets the weather every day or scores, but these are automated activities from devices that are appearing like human or human. So they're imitating human users. So the internet inversion is that there will be more fake users or people on the internet than real. And so what that can do has really consequences for this activity. Number one, right? It's really hard to ascribe a level of legitimacy to a login, a video view, a marketing campaign, a purchase when 51+% of interactions on your website are fake or automated or in any digital channel. The other kind of scary thing is when we see that the volume of these is so high that we could potentially start to see that there's a shift that if you're not being careful, you're seeing traffic, which you assume to be real, is fake. And so you see like huge click-through rates on ads or marketing campaigns or onto your video or onto your site to try to make a purchase. And you start to ascribe a level of legitimacy to those that then starts driving your business. So all of a sudden, the tail is wagging the dog and you're chasing bots rather than human users for whatever part of your business. So that's really going to require a paradigm shift of separating bots from real human users when we look at reporting and analysis of how's our business doing? How is this marketing campaign? What's our actual purchase rate on good transactions? How many loans do we approve based on, is someone actually sitting at the keyboard or on that phone or on that device versus someone's light switch is applying for a home loan?
And I think I wanted to give equal time because as you saw that customer journey that was, I like to call it the subway map, all the different ways that customers can get to the value your company provides. This is a little bit more of a circular one, but it's for banking and financial services. And what I hope to do is draw the parallel because many banks and financial institutions and other sorts of financial services are in the early innings of a game that e-commerce players have been playing for 25, 30 years. And it's about digital engagement. And so what's nice is these folks get a chance to learn from the lessons that have been taught they get the chance to learn the lessons that it took decades to learn in e-commerce, and they get to learn them in weeks or months, which it can be either good or bad. But clearly one of the things that people do learn is that there's fraud. And the parallels that I'm drawing to that kind of e-commerce journey is the idea that starting at like 1 o'clock or so there, you can see there's account creation and logging in and booking a time to schedule or chat with a financial advisor. And then in core banking, you've got loans that can be initiated, payments for services, profile updates on a banking account, the applying for credit, and then the delivery of this or the exchange or the delivery of the service can happen digitally as well. And many new business models are being pushed very quickly and really helping them transfer the value to the customer digitally rather than a physical face-to-face interaction. And then, following up and reevaluating and helping build awareness and growing that, growing the different channels, hopefully you can see how that identify, assess, engage, and grow paradigm works equally well in the financial services space.
Before this call started, or before this webinar started, the three of us were talking about how there's a lot of scary stuff out there in the world. And I think your last bits of conversation here have really highlighted on that and touched on that. As the marketing lady, I'll be the first one to say that Count has a lot of experience when it comes to digital commerce and fraud. I'm also savvy enough to know that there are a lot of other vendors out there that say the same thing. So Rich, help our listeners understand, how is Count's approach to all this a little bit different?
I think one of the things that we really care about is data transparency and enabling our customers to identify their customers very early in the cycle, whether they're a business or a consumer, segment them appropriately, and apply the appropriate customer journey to each of those customers. So the beauty of the combination of Count and Equifax is Count has decades of understanding digital signals from across the globe. And they're the sort of signals that I call heartbeat signals. They're daily activities where consumers and businesses are interacting with the businesses that they love on a daily basis. And then Equifax really brought the physical identity and life events. And these are how much you get paid, how much disposable income you have, what are your propensities to spend, paychecks, auto loans, credit scores, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when you combine those two views of the customer together, you can get really an ideal and unique understanding of your customer to deliver the appropriate services. And our approach as an internet fraud provider and a digital enablement platform is that we believe very strongly in data transparency. That means we've got capabilities and services that allow you to slice and dice the data that we use to make fraud decisions in however way you see fit. And that can be via the data mart that's embedded in our platform, or it can be part of our what we call our data on demand product, where we take all of the data that we use to make decisions, whether it's our friendly fraud protection platform, our login protection capability, our payment fraud protection capability. All of the data flows into that, and we can give our customers secure and compliant access to all of that data. And this really unleashes the talent inside their organizations, whether it's their AI and machine learning or data science teams, their analysts, et cetera, et cetera. We've got many, many stories of our customers taking the data that we collect and create as part of the fraud protection platform. And then we are really, really good at, in real time, putting that in context and making a decision with it. Well, we give our customers the ability to take that data after the fact and analyze it and use that data in context to jumpstart their data science or their analytic programs and really understand their customer better than they ever have been able to do. That's really a key to our approach, and we really believe strongly that if you do it right and you tackle criminal and friendly or first-party fraud, you can achieve extraordinary results, and then the byproduct data can be leveraged to tackle many, many, many different kinds of high-value business problems that exist in your organization, but you can't find a solution because you don't have the right data.
Great, thank you, Rich. Brady, anything you wanted to add there?
Yeah, the contextual bit is hard, right? As the data nerd on this small group, that's a lot of the work, is getting it into a way that's usable and makes sense, and it's all the same, right? Data wrangling is the least fun part of data science. The goal really with data on demand is we want to remove data and data wrangling as part of like the limiting region for your innovation. We see people do really cool things that we would not expect, but given their knowledge about their business, they make it happen. One of the problems is they lacked a source of truth where they get some data from here and some data from there, like their CRM, their risk data, their payment, P&L data is all spread out, but a singular view of everything from login, account creation, time of purchase, like after effects activity, we can kind of collate in one spot for them. That is in a performant environment that's really made for data science, right? That's why we generated it, and it's what we use internally to create the cool things that we do. So we wanted to, extend or facilitate that for our customers as well. And we've seen people do really cool things with it. I work with it every day, and I'm always blown away by the insights that people derive about their customers and their business that wouldn't be possible without, a contextual view that's fast, right? It's great to have data from 6 months ago in context, but that's too late, right? Where we can give you intra-hour data about your customers, and then, how your business reacts to that. We have people who measure launches real time via that product data on demand to see, how is the latest launch of this program, this application, this website going, and we use it internally as well. So a lot of exciting capability right on the cusp with that.
I'm mindful of time, and I know we've talked about quite a bit today. Massive threats from organized crime, all the hype around the metaverse, and fighting fraud with data. What's the one big picture takeaway for our audience? How should they change the way they think based on this conversation?
Yeah, so the fraud or bad actors as profit-seeking non-lawful firms, I think, is the best way to contextualize it. They're looking to gain value and revenue at any part of your customer journey. That's kind of the paradigm you need to start from. So whether launching a new product, new channel, new way of interacting with your customers, that needs to be one of the first things you think about. Is there a way that we can mitigate risk here? Because bad actors are stronger than ever, and they're looking for activity. So that would be kind of my key takeaway. Second is you can't really be left behind. This is a table stakes for having your business grow in the future, because if you're staying the same, your competitors are relatively going to outpace you.
I see we've got a question from Cheryl. And before we talk about what I think people should start to really think differently about, Cheryl's question was basically seeing scams where people steal photographs, then upload them to platforms of products, so that they're uploading to a marketplace, let's say, or some platform, and then the buyer gets duped because they think they're buying a high quality product and they're actually buying a counterfeit knockoff or nothing at all, or their credit card is being stolen, etc. And it's really there's a couple of things that I think are powerful there. One is the sort of probably the biggest advancement in that space is the services that scan the internet and then affect essentially a takedown, because somebody's using goods to which they don't own the copyright. That is not something that we perform, but Cheryl, who asked the question, if you reach out to us after the webinar, we can help with that, because we've got partners that do that work. So one of the ways that I think people should begin thinking differently about how their businesses can be impacted is what I'm calling the battle with big tech. And it's about retail, but it's also about digital financial services type firms as well. And if we examine the state of play today, I think that many businesses, particularly small businesses, but it goes all the way up to medium and enterprise as well, are really trapped in a cycle of dependence. And they're trapped in this cycle of dependence by big tech. And big tech, it depends on your company, but you know, the common ones people think of is, you know, Google, Twitter, Facebook, Ali, whatever, these newer platforms that have massive user bases. And the problem is that retailers and other digital businesses are spending a massive amount of money to rent access to cohorts to which they can market to. And they get, they have a viable platform for marketing. And then when they get the users, what they're finding is sometimes they convert, but more often that they don't. And this creates weakness. The reason is the companies never get access to the underlying data. And because they never have access to the underlying data, they're not able to build the muscles inside their company to understand the customers earlier, offer them the best offer, and grow the value with them over time. And what I'm seeing right now is partners all over are, companies all over are looking for partners to source data in context and to deliver that data to their analytics and data science teams and really start to build those muscles. And they're starting to realize they need to break that cycle of dependence by asking different questions. Like, if I knew my customers better, could I do better? If I understood my customers better, could I spend less of this money on renting cohorts and make better long-term investment in my business? If I did a better job of understanding my customers, could I combine that physical and digital customer journey and customer understanding in a way that helps me actually grow my business over time? And I think as people start to figure out kind of who the real enemy is and what it means to have giant platforms, to have to pay giant platforms to get to customers, but not get any of the underlying data, I think that's where the ecosystem that Count and Equifax are a part of can really, really help customers grow.
I do have a couple other questions that have come in. Brady and Rich, you guys have talked about the metaverse. What do you really think? Is it all hype, or is it something folks listening should actually be considering and be concerned with? Brady, why don't we start with you?
From a definitional standpoint, I think if we define the metaverse as like a cohesive, singular, centralized place on the internet where people will walk into a digital store and go to their digital bank, 90% hype. Don't really see that happening. And that's the way it's really being framed. Like, you hear about sales of land on the metaverse, and the metaverse doesn't exist as a sure play option outside of the Facebook ecosystem. So hype. In reality, if we're talking about new ways of digital interactions with business, from like a digital mall that you can put your headset on and walk through, or digital walkthroughs of homes or stores, not hype. I think it's definitely the way things are moving, right? If you've ever bought furniture and it doesn't fit in your house, that's a terrible experience. But the metaverse makes it so you can put that piece of furniture in context in your house. Or I can go to a store and digitally pick up a lamp, or sit down and talk with my banker in digital, right? That I don't think is hype. I think that's real. But a centralized place on the internet, hype, 100%.
Rich, what are your thoughts?
I think it's one of those beauties in the eye of the beholder. I see the idea of having a collection of digital properties with which you can interact with brands as being a really, really big deal. And I think in particular, the younger generations are going to come to believe that that's table stakes for interacting with them in their own language, in their own level, in their own world. And so I do think it's real. I think it'll be I think it'll take time, but I think a lot of the companies types that I mentioned earlier, they've gone a long way into making this a reality. So that's what I think.
Great. Friendly fraud, another question. Friendly fraud was mentioned in that opening poll, and James is saying it is a problem for his company. Is there something that Count can do to help with friendly fraud, or what can we do in terms of friendly fraud?
Yeah, I think Count is, yes, Count can help, but I also think the good news is the ecosystem is moving in directions that are going to make it a lot more difficult to commit friendly fraud. For, I don't know, 30 years, the credit card ecosystem has taught people that if you want something free, call the number on the back of the card and, spin a yarn and you'll get it free. And that has become, number one, very expensive for all sides of the ecosystem. It has become really a drain on resources and very inefficient. And I think it's honestly has gotten to the point where it calls into question the systemic integrity of kind of the credit card processing model. And because of that, Visa bought Verify, MasterCard bought Ethica, which coincidentally, Count has partnered with both of those companies for a long, long time. And we've got what we believe is the easiest to integrate and easiest to activate friendly fraud system that allows you to connect to both of those major players very seamlessly. And then you layer on top of that all the things that we do to identify and understand, based on our AI and machine learning and the data that we collect, is it really friendly fraud or is it criminal fraud? You combine those two things, and I really do think that you get to the point where you can eliminate 90% of the chargebacks that companies experience. Criminal fraud's a portion and friendly fraud's a portion. You eliminate those, and then all you have left are kind of the operational mistakes that businesses make that create legitimate disputes. And when you have that focus, you can focus on those and correct the problems that cause those mistakes, which helps you build your business, which, in case you haven't noticed, I really, really, really think it's important to be continually building your business.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Rich. Brady, is there anything we haven't yet touched on today that you wanted to address for folks?
Yeah, part of Rich's discussion about, is this cohort renting valuable, right? Am I getting my money's worth out of all this ad and marketing spend, right? If you look at some like click-through rates on digital ads, we're talking like sub 1%, sub 1 out of 1,000 for clicking on the ad. And so we're starting to see rumblings of companies are like, hey, let's reevaluate this situation as a whole, right? Uber had a big announcement that they were slashed their advertising budget and saw no change in customer growth and retention. They found that like tens of millions, if not 50 to 100 million of their dollars of their ad spend just went to kind of affiliate fraud in ads. So they were serving ads to affiliates that never really resulted in real users, right? There's been calls by CEOs to really clean up the ad industry, that these ads aren't serving anyone. And though we're getting views on ads, we're not getting the kind of conversion we would expect. So that either says that people don't click on ads, which if you go to like Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, people are building real businesses via serviced targeted ads, or that a lot of these views are totally fraudulent. So ad fraud is something that we're starting to see kind of bubble up, if people are really reevaluating kind of that part of the industry, which then calls into the question, how much of the internet or the free internet is really supported by ads, right? Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, right? Every digital business that doesn't sell a product, they sell their users as products. They're potentially in for a world of hurt if, the equation of customers pay to advertise, and in response, they get customers who go to their business. If that part of the equation breaks, it really calls into question, how do we support free content on the internet without ads? Or if most ads are fake, companies are like, why spend $100 million on ads? I'm not going to get anything out of it, or I can't attribute that to real sales. That is a conundrum that this bot thing is really forcing the industry as a whole to reckon with. And I think 2022 is probably the time of that reckoning.
Great. Rich, any last thoughts from you? We're just about out of time, but any final thoughts?
No, I would just say, thank you all for joining us. I know everybody on the call has a very personal interest in fighting fraud. I've been doing this for about 15 years. I find the business fascinating. I love working with people that are in the trenches, so to speak, every day, trying to stop the bad actors from, stealing their goods, causing brand damage, causing abuse, because we all know that it's not just about stolen credit cards and stealing money. The bad actors are funding many, many, many other types of very malicious activity, from human trafficking to other deplorable things. And I just thank you all for doing your part to stop that. And I love working together with people. So thank you all.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Brady, for joining us today. We appreciate all of your insights. Thank you to everyone who joined our session today. This does conclude our presentation today. As mentioned at the beginning, we will share the recording with everyone within the next 24 to 48 hours. If you do have any additional questions, or there's something you'd like to discuss with us further, our LinkedIn information is on the screen, or you can simply email events@count.com, and we'll be right back in touch with you. Thank you so much and have a great day.